Welcome one, welcome all. April 23rd to April 29th, another CIRF report, this one entitled, Things Get Serious. Yeah, another week where we can't just sit back and just kind of enjoy things and see life just drifting by us. No, we actually have to care this time. Now, what's interesting in this house, at least, we have two adults who woke up very early. We're normally very good sleepers, woke up early, extremely early, could get back to sleep. If that's you, I would appreciate a comment to relieve our worries that it might just be us. We normally are very good sleepers, but in this case today, it's been a long day because woke up a little bit too early, couldn't get back to sleep. So anyway, it's another fairly serious week. And for those of you who are new, here's what we're looking at. This is just the summary slide. We have the title of the show down here, Things Are Getting Serious. Now, this title here is the triangulation of three different sources. We use Tropical Astrology, the Dreambot, and the I-Ching. And we actually toss out coins with an intention to find out the biggest influence. The I-Ching is from the Book of Changes, where the assumption is that energy is always changing. So it's in understanding the changes that we get the actual energy flow. And so for this week, we're comparing the I-Ching, for example, with the astrology, but we also have the Dreambot. We use the collective unconscious. And while this diagram here with circles may not be all that meaningful, for those listeners who have been with me for quite some time, I think they understand what this is all about. This indicates that the circles or the sources of energy for our triangulation are directly on top of each other, making a very high congruency score. We have the people dreaming about matters of life and death. We have astrology where it includes multiple factors of things that might produce an energy that feels like life or death. So, for example, Pluto going retrograde. We have an I-Ching reading that says determination. Now, if you didn't have a hexagram that says determination, then you wouldn't have anything that produces something to be determined about. In other words, there won't be any hardship. If there's no hardship, there's no determination. Therefore, that energy underlying hexagram 43 is the same thing. Could be matters of life and death, might be extreme for that, but it's going to be an upward battle, basically, according to the I-Ching. So things do get serious. And what we're going to do is we're going to start in the collective unconscious. We're going to look at the Dreambot. This scours the internet, pulling back people's dreams. And this is important because we want to know where the subconscious is going. Today's Dreambot has everything to do with it's a direct overlap of what the Rave Mandala is going to look like. I know that this might be over people's heads, but we're going to drill down each day of astrology. Then towards the end of the show, we are going to then switch over to the solution, where we're going to triangulate using different sources that produce the behaviors, the required behaviors to best encapsulate or best use this energy that's afforded us, kind of like a surfer. So we want to find the right wave to get on so we can go further in life using the right procedures, techniques, emotional adjustments, the right cognitions, etc. So that's towards the end of the show. First is the influence, and we're going to start with the Dreambot when we come back. And this is what the Dreambot looks like. We're going to go zoom in, and you're going to see a few linguistic sets, but you're also going to see lots of different arrows. This is a lot more arrows than normal. And what we do is we combine all these dream words. These are the most popular words in people's dreams today, within the last 24 hours. And we collect memes, or we establish memes. So these red arrows are commensurate with the red text down below, which means subject, topic, expression. What this means is it's just, for example, the top word is subject. It's like a topic discussion. If you read the I-Ching, it actually talks about focusing on a particular subject. So that's a direct overlap of the I-Ching. But here's what's interesting too. More overlap with the astrology is the next meme, and that's the blue arrows. That's called matters of life and death. I mean, we have Jesus, sun, life, death, present, and present. That word is a very good example of how metaphoric dreams can be, because present can be pronounced present. A present isn't a gift or being in the present and the now. So it's a double. There's two memes in here. And it's also that word present is also part of the word of the meme timeline. So those are the orange arrows, the yellow arrows. There's all sorts of these words like years, recent, past, week. So all these words having to do with some sort of time or timeline. But here's what I'd like to propose. And it's really interesting how the DreamBot, and I got lots of examples how the DreamBot, the dreamers, see what's really going on behind the scenes. And so this when it matches mainstream media, it tends to be more day residue, which means it's not really like genuine information coming from maybe the other side or through the dreams, the subconscious. But in today's material, it seems to be matching what could be happening underneath the story. So like if COVID-19 is more of a cover story for something else happening, or a convenient story, a convenient distraction for what's happening underneath, I think that's what the DreamBot is picking up. So here's what I'm proposing. And all along, we've noticed that the Q movement seems to be showing up in these latest CIRF reports. And I'd like to think that it's the combination of our sources that confirm this, but it's direct words that are in the DreamBot that really seem to resonate. So here's what I'm talking about. Now, of course, we could be thinking of religious symbolism here with Jesus, but work with me here. You got John in linguistic set number 1. John, Jesus, Son, and life. What if linguistic set number 1 is indicating that JFK Jr. is actually alive? Now here's what I'm thinking. John, of course, and life. Well, he was supposedly died in an airplane crash in 1999, but he's also a son of the famous JFK. He said he was going to avenge his father's death. I'm not suggesting that JFK was Jesus, but there is some similarities here, because if JFK Jr. was alive, he would probably kind of be considered, coming back alive, coming back to life. And that's very similar to Jesus, rising from the dead, if you will. And so in a way, that would be rising from the dead. The people in the Q movement believe that JFK is alive. I don't know. The evidence that's supposedly out there looks hopeful, looks interesting. Linguistic set number 2 says death, imagination, present, advanced. I'm wondering if the things that are happening in the present moment become so advanced that it's the death of even our imagination. And this has to do with the technology that was been taken from Tesla way back when. Tesla's got anti-gravity machines at the turn of the 20th century, in 1900s, shortly after that, followed by, of course, the Third Reich with Foo Fighters and whatnot. But in a regard, we're still driving the technology around with gas-guzzling cars from 100 plus years ago. Meanwhile, you're using some very advanced technologies that in today's world would look absolutely alien. So if the Q movement is correct, and this could be a confirmer that the death of what you imagined is the technology, even knowing that the technology would be so advanced by now with all these years they've had to work with it, that it is about to happen. So that's cool. I don't know, take that or leave it. Didn't want to waste too much time on that, but I thought it was important to bring that up. By the way, for those of you who are interested, the Dreambot is at the National Dream Center, posted every day. The temperature or the barometer of the collective unconscious has been less negative recently, although, it's not really negative. It's just more life and death. It's like getting very serious kind of a thing with a timeline attached to it. So let's look at the astrology now. I'm going to show you a lot of big things that are coming down. We have, let me get my pointer out. You have Pluto going in retrograde halfway through the week here. We have Mercury going into Taurus. We're going to talk about all that. And then you have Mercury. The theme here seems to be thoughts. If last time it was like the ego having conflict and obstacles, now it's mind. And Mercury's got a bunch of squares, those same squares that the sun passed earlier. So most of these red lines here are squares, and Mercury is at the center of those. We're going to talk about in the first slide, Venus square Neptune. That's going to be a really big factor as well. And it actually adds to this idea of things get serious. So first of all, I point to you, Mercury, and you can see these squares. There's 3 squares here. Pluto is not yet retrograde at this point. Jupiter and Saturn. So all the things that we talked about with the sun and the ego really feeling distant from all these helpful, your inner power with Pluto, your abundance and positivity and deep wisdom from Jupiter. And then, of course, the discipline and the foundation from Saturn, all that's separated from the mind now. We feel obstacles when we try to go there. We find obstacles, mental obstacles, when we try to communicate about inner power or transformation. And that's going to be good for this entire week. The mind is basically blocked. And it's a mind that's on fire. And it's a mind that's very selfish. Well, it can be selfish. I don't want to say that it has to be selfish, but our Mercury right now, our minds are, one of the recent CIRF reports was, what about me? And that's still where our minds are because Mercury's in Aries. And what about me isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't have much context, because every time it tries to make context with what it knows, it's getting blocked. And you might find that when you're trying to rationalize things this week, trying to make logical sequences, it's going to be rough. I got a lot to say on that, but let's move on, and we'll talk about that more in the solutions. The big thing next is Venus, and Venus over here in Gemini. It's a nice place for her to be. I mean, she's harmonious. Geminis are friendly, so it's an outward appearance of being friendly, and we can be beautiful, and Venus is all about beauty and the finer things. But she's blocked now from Neptune. Neptune's still in the home of Pisces. And so what that means is we are blocked from seeing more beautiful dreams. We're kind of like, our sense of what beautiful is doesn't seem to equate to what we imagined before. Maybe seem pressure of trying to see the silver lining, because everything doesn't seem so beautiful anymore. And this is because we're kind of choked off from our imagination. Now, of course, imagination might be real negative, so this is not necessarily just a bad thing, but to be choked off from imagination or to have obstacles going into those is really going to produce some standstill when it has to do with harmonizing and relating with others. But luckily, we have Venus that still has a trine over to Mars, and Mars likes to really get stuff done in Aquarius, which is for the collective good. So at least we still have that channel. But there's a lot of obstacles. Let's just be straight here. You got everywhere you turn, you've got ego, the sun, still with its remaining square over to Saturn. You've got the sun and Uranus and moon all together here in a conjunction. That's like the new moon on steroids in the material world. This is Taurus. Sorry, I didn't mean to flick my mouse over there. But we have in Taurus, it's asking everybody to really experience the now moment and the finer things, and really relaxing into the experience. And the Uranus isn't going to let your ego and your new moon doing this, and your new cycle is starting, but it's on the change. The cycle itself is on steroids. So you can help this out by, for those of you who are watching tonight, remember, before this CIRF report comes out, I think by the time it comes out within maybe an hour, you've got the new moon happening. And so the new moon would mean you can go back and see the previous CIRF report, but you've got the moon over the sun at, I think, a little over 10 o'clock Central Time. And it's both of those proceeding to Uranus. So all this happening all at once. And guess who's the worst of the zodiac is on adapting to change? It's Taurus. And so we've got kind of a paradox going. All the change is happening in those areas of life that seem to be very traditional. It ain't going back. And we don't know what's going to be happening next. So we're already on edge. Our Taurusness or our stubbornness, all that kind of stuff is kind of getting upset now. So there's going to be a lot of emotions from that, and a new moon anyway is going to produce that little inner conflict. So that's day one, my friends, and wait until the T-square at the very end of the week. All right, now we get a little reprieve here on the 24th on Friday. You can see all 3 squares to Mercury, no change there. You have the sun and Uranus still together. The moon is advanced, far enough away. But check out the moon. You got the moon with all these nice, easy trines. And so these become available to us now, the transformation, the abundance, the deeper wisdom, the discipline, the chiseling of our skills, all these things. These become accessible only by our emotions on Friday. And this is fleeting because the moon is fairly rapidly moving across the zodiac. So just on Friday, you've got access to those 3 twins down there via your emotions. If you try to think about it, though, boom, you're going to be met with more obstacles. On Saturday, Pluto goes retrograde in Capricorn. Now, when this happens, you have an inner power that is kind of, might feel a sense of ending and starting over, or maybe a reflecting on how I misused power and control in the past. It might be a karmic thing where you're feeling sometimes where you misapplied power in the past. Or maybe there might be a time when Pluto almost forced you to transform and you didn't comply. So this might be the time where you get a second chance to do this. So it behoove yourself to go ahead and go through this transformation. And remember, when you do, it is not the ending. Pluto makes you think that it's the ending when really it's the beginning. So that is a reframing, but it's an important one. And of course, the folks in Capricorn, my sun or ascendants in Capricorn, are going to feel this probably the most. It's going to be intense. It normally is obsessive thoughts, obsessiveness in general, maybe some deep passions that weren't there before start arising. Might have to do with some Capricorn stuff like goal-oriented, maybe a new hill to climb, that kind of thing, or maybe an old hill to reclimb. How about that? But now you've got some extra pressure with the Mercury obstacles, right? And so this is a mental pressure cooker that we have. Mind is more separated from it, but all these influences are causing mind to go more. And so I try to connect these dots, and all I'm met with is more obstacles. So it doesn't behoove you to think more. We have Sun that is going towards Uranus, so getting stronger, this ego change in Taurus. And so my identity with the material world being Taurus, all that changes. And you might get some really genius insights. So yeah, kind of tapping into your core identity, your core awareness might be a real good thing here. All right, now we get into Sunday, and like I talked about, this is going exact. Of course, this is at 3:40 a.m. I thought that would be important to know exactly when the Sun is conjunct with Uranus, and it's in Taurus again, 6 degrees 35 minutes, and this is the strongest influence for ego change, or how you're changing your identity and context in this material world. As Mercury starts making its way towards Taurus, all the other influences are fairly similar. And we have now a double square with the Moon and Venus over to Neptune. So maybe some more disconnect away from our imagination and unable to really feel the beauty in those dreams, that kind of thing. By the way, what I didn't mention with Venus square Neptune, another way that we could look at that is kind of a finance thing, and we might feel very limited compared to what we imagined. And that could be a real factor in all sorts of people's, more and more people claiming unemployment and that sort of thing. I think that's going to be here. And then as you go to try to imagine what the future is going to be like, boom, tons of obstacles, and it doesn't feel very good. And so, in terms of beauty, finance, harmony, it might be good to just kind of dispense with any type of dreaming and imagination and just focus on the Taurus thing, the Sun going into Uranus, and kind of going with that change. Now, this isn't the solution. The solution is going to be quite a bit different, but I'm just talking day to day here. Interesting, one more thing. I promise, last thing. Notice your dreams on, let's see, it would be Sunday. As you're waking up on Sunday the 26th, this is happening, this exact conjunction, Sun conjunct Uranus in Taurus, is happening at about 3:41 a.m. It might be a great opportunity to see what those dreams are. And that might give you the best indication of, better access to dreams and imagination without going more for the mental emotional side of things. We want to keep those out of there. And so, kind of a direct shortcut is to go into the dreams at the time of this conjunction and just see what's there. It might give you some good insights there. But it's kind of like a really short period of time to get those, i.e. that one night. Monday the 27th, we have the Moon with some adjustments. The Moon is past Venus. It is just about over the North Node now. And so emotions are really forward-looking and life purpose kind of oriented. So we need adjustments to be made. And that goes along with what we're adjusting to: Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. I've been through those already. Mercury in its last day in Aries. So now, like I said, on Tuesday the 28th, Mercury goes into Taurus, and from Aries, your thoughts are now kind of losing all these obstacles. So that's kind of feeling a little bit better. And at the same time, Mercury's going into Taurus, which now feels a little bit stronger in terms of what it knows. So it's not really assimilating anything new now. So it's just kind of like relaxing. The mind is more relaxing. When you relax into an experience like a fine dinner or a campfire, and you're just sitting there like a good Taurus does, The mind generally is free to relax as well. Racing thoughts tend to go down. When the body relaxes, the mind tends to relax as well. So that's what you're going to see probably with this Mercury on Tuesday, the 28th. But however, it's headed towards Uranus too. So you've got all these conjunct Sun, Uranus, Mercury. And as Mercury gets closer, within 5 degrees now, and any point from here, it's losing the obstacles to, its inner power, its abundance, and, excessiveness and deeper wisdom. But at the same time, it's headed towards an unknown change. And so I got rid of some baggage over here, but now I'm headed towards the cliff. That might be what the Taurus Mercury is doing right now. All right, so watch out for that. And then finally, the final mental showdown on Wednesday, the 29th, not just one T-square. The moon makes a triple T-square with Mercury in the middle. So now it's like the final straw. So after this T-square, you can consider Mercury to be fairly free, but free to go change. And his mind is going to be forced to adapt. Taurus doesn't want to. He's going to be more bullheaded than ever, but more afraid of what is on the other side of this Uranus. So it's a trap. And on Wednesday, the trap is the mind. And so on Wednesday, we need to really just focus. Well, first of all, I'm going to give you a simple solution later in our solution section, but on this particular day in the T-square, it is going to be best just to experience the now. Be in the now. You don't want to be in your thoughts. You don't want to be in your emotions. And it's a big old balancing act. So to get rid of all that, you go straight to your ego, your sun, and you experience. And even if everything's changing, just experience it all. That is the T-square on Wednesday. But now we need to talk about the solution. We're going to start with, I'm sorry. Now is the I-Ching reading. We're still on the influence, but now here's the weird thing. For the past year, 3 or 4, I can't remember, the I-Ching reading did not have any change lines. And that happens again. It seems like every time we have something that's very close to the Q movement in our Dreambot run or our CIRF report, it seems like the I-Ching is no change. So what that means is, for the new people, is the I-Ching hexagram is 43. That becomes not just the influence, but also the solution. So that is determination. Now, since we have so much time talking about Taurus and making those recommendations, I need to specify that in the I-Ching readings, they talk about determination is not stubbornness. It is holding your ground, but it's much more than that. So I'm going to read quite a bit here so that we can really assimilate what determination means in the terms of the hexagram. All right. Some resolution is pointing to a breakthrough. Isn't that pretty cool? Well, I didn't even get through the full sentence, but I find that very first sentence very powerful, especially if we're hoping that this Q movement is correct and things are progressing as planned, which none of us are really privy to what the plan is. But overall, the goals, I think, are fairly well known. Arrest the bad guys, bring out the technology. Let's shoot this life into the next higher transcendent state. All right. Some resolution is pointing to a breakthrough, but decisive action will be necessary. If you diligently hold your ground, warding off negative tendencies or bad influences, goodness will indeed prevail. Man, I would like it just to be that, but there is so much more. I recommend, just still listening to this, and then we'll get to the triangulation of the solution. How much time? Wow, I'm almost to 30 minutes already. So this one's going to be a longer video. Be resolute against the forces of negativity, whether in your social or professional life or in your own soul. Be certain rules must be followed for your efforts to succeed. First rule, do not compromise with corruption. The second rule, you cannot successfully resist or defeat negativity on its own terms. Positive alternatives which lead away from the nature of the problem are more appropriate than trying to counter corruption with raw power. This is incredible because the whole Q movement is countering corruption. So why is it taking them so long? If the Q movement is correct and that's what's really happening, then why is it taking them so long? Because they're following this I-Ching reading for sure. Will lead them away from the nature of the problem, or more appropriate than trying to counter corruption with raw power. In other words, we're going back to the rule of law. The third, this means the means used to counter negativity need to be consistent with the results you want to achieve. You cannot stop spreading of lies by spreading more of them. Okay, so in order to catch the bad guys, we can't be throwing a bunch of lies out and hoping to beat them at their own game, if you will. So that's why, hopefully, it's taking so long, quote unquote. But I do think there's progress happening if you can read between the lines. All right, back to the hexagram 43, but some more information. The resoluteness required to achieve success must combine vigor with openness. In the image of approaching an obstacle by discrediting it, you can refuse to acknowledge it as having power over you. To demonstrate anger and emotion can only validate the power of the obstacle and waste your energy. Now, this is a really neat overlap with what we're going to see from the Rave Mandala, or the Rave version of the hexagram. It's 39. That's for the solution, though. But watch this emotion here. To demonstrate anger and emotion can only validate the power of the obstacle and waste your energy. You are going to see that later when we talk about the Rave Mandala. It's incredible how all this overlaps. All right, because there's no change lines, we go to the unchanging. And when the creative is stirring below the joyous lake in unchanging form, attitudes can block a breakthrough in thinking. Defensiveness always leads us in circles because we are somewhere other than the present. Determination and breakthrough should lead to an attitude of joyousness and a sense of harmony. You can't force your opinions on others, but you do need to remain true to yourself. Difficult decisions must be made as you can no longer maintain what worked in the past. If you inspire joy in others, they will naturally want to be around you. If what you have to say makes another defensive or makes them retreat, consider how you might be unconsciously defending your power or need for control. Does this not sound like Pluto Retrograde? So watch that power and controlling others, maybe from the past. Maybe you tried to control them before. Maybe you tried to control a situation in life too much. You might have to face that situation again with the Pluto Retrograde. Pursuing what is bad for you and then fleeing from what may be good just leads to more defensiveness because your decisions are faulty. Get at the root of what pushes your buttons. If you feel sadness or anger, consider that you are unconsciously defending what doesn't need to be defended. Big, big, big words. All right, so that was, when I was reading it, that was the influence, but it was also our first step in the solution because we didn't have a change line. Normally, if we have a change line, that second hexagram becomes the solution. So we've already read the I-Ching portion of the solution. Now we look at the sidereal. So we take the most important astrological aspect, which I determined based on the I-Ching focused very heavily on both Pluto, but also very heavily on the Taurus aspect, is being determined. But the only problem is there's a problem with the Taurusness because it has a hard time being open and flexible. And so we need to be determined like a bull-headed Taurus, but we got to be flexible. Well, luckily, we have Gemini, and the Sidereal Astrology is where we ascertain the solution. So step one of our solution is Gemini. And in Gemini, we have that adaptability that we want. It just so happens that Uranus and the moon and the mind about ready to get overhauled. You have the solution of being adaptable, being witty. You can even use humor if you'd like to. There's also mind and rationality. It's an air sign. Gemini is air. And so we can use rationality. But this week it's kind of tricky because of all those squares associated with Mercury. So really just using humor, making yourself open and adaptable, maybe friendly even. And you can still use that natural influence where the Sun and Uranus are in Taurus. And so Taurus is going to make you determined, if you will. All right, so that's step one is Gemini. Now look where the Sun is. You have to take this little jaunt here, but it shows up in Rave hexagram 39. Now, remember what the Dreambot said? It had Jesus in it. Well, this reading has Jesus in it as well. It's absolutely incredible how these things overlap. But let me read a little bit of this. This to me is really confusing. So, and some of it's, there's kind of some typos. So, like its mirror, the 39th gate of the fighter. By the way, 39 is the gate of the provocateur. Obstruction is a combative fuel. Obstruction is a combative fuel. According to the I-Ching, what was causing obstructions? Well, getting too bullheaded. So obstruction is a combative fuel. Sometimes between the birth of Buddha and Jesus, the solar plexus center began to evolve into our third awareness center. The awareness of spirit, rarely experienced of our time, emotional awareness is our collective destiny. The energy to provoke is an essential ingredient, and this is the typo, but in this design that the individual must fight is provoked and must provoke to find the spirit. The provocateur is seeking out the spirit. Okay, the provocateur is seeking out the spirit, trying to provoke it into expression. All right, so basically what this is all saying is that the gate of the provocateur in human design is that we can accidentally feel a discomfort or an emotion in us and then start provoking other people. And this is what causes the obstructions and the combativeness. But what we're supposed to be doing, according to this, is provoking our spirit. So you got the discomfort, and it hints that there's something deeper that you look for, and so you provoke something. But you go inward to provoke. You're provoking your soul from coming out. And it's these mood swings which actually help us if you know how to deal with that energy. So the mood swings from hope to pain is the energy of the solar plexus and not its potential awareness. Patience is the key. If the mood cycle is not seen for what it is, the wave frequency of the solar plexus, then a result may be eating disorders. I'm not really sure why they picked up just eating disorders, but any disorders are going to be coming out of the inability to handle the emotional stuff there. And if we are not aware of the emotion, we're going to accidentally provoke other people outside of us. It might look like controlling other people, not even knowing we're doing it. We might be manipulating them. So instead of using your energy for provoking others and having big mood swings, use that energy, go deeper, provoke the spirit, bring the soul out, and now I've got my higher values of my actions out there. This might have been over your head a little bit. These are not easy concepts. These are brand new concepts from the Rave Mandala, but I've got more to say in the triangulation, and We're going to take a little break and then go to the summary slide. So hang with me. And that was our sponsor, Interzension. If you need therapy, if you need life coach, if you need an astrology reading or a human design reading, no better place than interzension.com. I'll help you with any one of those. And I promise that I put my heart and soul into helping your condition or your problem sets. So let's look at the summary slide as we head into the very ending part of this longest surf report in history. All right, on the top, we have the influence. And basically, with all the astrology, man, it's just crazy energy out there, including Pluto Retrograde, all the squares with Mercury, a freaking T-square, etc. Things are getting serious, right? I don't know why I picked that guy's face, but he looks pretty serious. Now, let's triangulate in the solution. Basically, we have the Rave Mandala, we have the Sidereal Astrology, we have the I-Ching, and then I'm going to read the overall triangulation. So just to review, we had Rave Mandala number 39. That was telling us to have patience, to have better emotional awareness, provoke the spirit, and don't provoke other people. So keep the emotional awareness high so that you aren't provoking other people. Instead, you're using that extra energy to provoke your soul to get on your soul path and stay on that soul path. All right, that was a mouthful. Sidereal, we're going to use Gemini. This is easy. Be enthusiastic. We're going to be the best of Gemini. Enthusiastic, eager, curious, remain alert. You can try to be rational, but use caution there. It's better just to remain alert and use all the other Gemini. Be responsive. And if you're funny, if you can use that at the right times, and it is applicable and appropriate, use humor. It's a great way to break down obstacles, and it's a very Gemini thing. Remember hexagram, I think it was 43 from the I-Ching. Avoid the worst of Taurus. Watch defensiveness. No forcing opinions on others. Avoid trying to control others and the situation. That matches perfectly with the Rave. Combine vigor and openness. So we're going to ultimately use a combination between the Rave and the Gemini. So we want an increased and enhanced commitment to our highest values, and we're not going to budge from those. That's our Taurusness. Then we're going to be open and responsive and active. That's the Sidereal Gemini. Okay? Hold your ground, hold true to yourself, build your resolve. Now here's the overall triangulation of all of that together. Use the Taurus to boldly follow your highest values, but use the Gemini to remain open and alert to new things. Use emotions to empower your soul. Okay? Nowhere in there was the need to rationalize and do a lot of mental gymnastics. This week is not that. We're not building new values. These are things you've always held true. You don't have to try. You know what's important to you. So you just remain true to those. But don't be defensive. You don't have to be right. The truth doesn't need to be defensive. But you need to hold strong to your highest values. That's important. So you can adapt and remain open, but you can remain nice and steady with what's important to you, using all the emotions that you're going to experience, because I know there'll be some emotions this week, and use those to empower your soul. All right. Boy, I hope that made a lot of sense to you. If not, comments below. If so, comments below. Please share this video if you enjoyed it, and hopefully you can get someone else to subscribe here and benefit from. I'm excited because other people really get benefit out of this. I know I do. That's why I do this. But I'd sure like to have some other folks that benefit as well, and for their good. I'm not here to influence and make a bunch of people happy and make it rich. I'm not about that. So take care, everybody. And don't forget the new moon is happening tonight for most of you who are watching tonight. All right. Take care.